Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to finally review the 35mm f1.4 first edition steel rim remake from Leica. Well, that's a mouthful. If you watched my past videos, you know that when I first received this lens, it was not a perfect copy. The aperture ring wobbles quite a bit and the lens hood also doesn't stay very sturdy on the lens. So I sent the lens back to Leica, and more than half a year later they sent it back to me with a brand new lens, and this time also with two updated lens hood so that you can finally use filters on this lens again. Well, as I've said before, I'm going to compare this lens to other very similarly spec'd lenses. One also from Leica, which is the pre-aspherical version Summilux. This particular version is brass and it's got a titanium finish, so it feels quite hefty in your hand. Actually built very, very well. Well, this is said to have, this is supposed to have the same optical design as the original steel rim, which is a crazy expensive lens that I don't currently own. So this is the closest lens I have to the original steel rim. And also this can be obtained with a reasonable price if you opt for the black version, the standard black version. It's even a little bit cheaper. So I thought it would be a very meaningful comparison in that sense too. And the other lens is the Voigtlander 35mm f1.4. Well, it's also a tiny little lens. Considering it's a 1.4 lens, it is a retro design, just like the Leica Summilux first edition and second edition, or the pre-aspherical. The optical quality of this lens, from my past experience, is actually a little bit better, at least in terms of sharpness, to the Leica pre-aspherical Summilux lens. And what's interesting is that I've also got a Voigtlander sort of replica of the Leica steel rim, as you can see here. They look almost exactly the same. Well, the Voigtlander is also made of brass and it's very, very heavy. It's built really, really well, and we're gonna talk about the build quality of these lenses in a bit. But first, we're gonna take a look at some of the photos I've taken with the 35 f1.4 Summilux steel rim remake, both on digital sensors and on film, because I believe a lot of people are interested in how this lens renders on film without any, post-processing. So let's take a look at that first. Alright, so what do you think about these photos? Did it perform the way you expect to be? Coming from a lens that was designed decades ago. I mean, I'm more into better corrected lenses these days, but this definitely has got that very classic Leica glow to it. Okay, so next part is the optical performance comparison among these three lenses, and let's take a look. Okay, so what do you think about these three lenses? Well, there are some quite obvious conclusions we can draw here. First of all, the Summilux Steel Rim Remake has the least vignette among all these three lenses. And the Voigtlander and the old pre-A Summilux perform very similarly in this aspect. I don't know if it has anything to do with the larger diameter of the front of the new Summilux, but it's certainly a plus for me. Now, the Voigtlander does exhibit quite a bit of distortion, unfortunately, compared to the two Leicas, and this might be a deal breaker for a lot of people out there. But for me, it's okay. I don't shoot a lot of architecture, and I don't usually notice that much of a distortion in my photo, at least. Not until, of course, I compare them side by side, and by shooting at the window behind me, which are made up of perfect straight lines. Well, that was a bummer. In terms of sharpness, I would say still the Voigtlander is a little bit ahead of the two Leicas, and the two Leicas performed basically the same because they do share the optical formula. But I don't know if you've noticed, one very obvious difference between the new Steel Rim Remake and the pre-aspherical is that the pre-aspherical has this yellower tint to it, while the new Leica and the Voigtlander both leaning towards magenta. This is actually consistent with my experience with the newer Leica glasses. They all have this more magenta tint to it, compared to the older Leica lenses usually has yellower or even greener tint to the lens. And I suspect that has to do with the lens coating, and this new Summilux is definitely using the new lens coating from Leica. Now, talking about that Leica glow, there's very obvious aberration when shoot wide open for both these Summilux lenses. And you can tell by just looking at this photo here, the highlight bleed is quite severe compared to the Voigtlander. And this might attribute to the Leica glow that you see here. For example, in this photo. You can see that the new Steel Rim actually has more glow than the pre-aspherical, which is not what I expected. I thought with the newer coating, it might actually tame the glow a little bit, but looks like Leica wants to maintain that famous glow on their first edition Summilux Steel Rim. So for those that enjoy that Leica glow on the first edition, you guys are in luck here, because this lens definitely exhibits more glow than the pre-aspherical, even though that lens is technically older. Oh, and all three of these lenses benefits greatly when it comes to resolution if you stop them down a little bit. There's a huge difference when it comes to resolution, both in the center and towards the edge of the frame when you stop it down from 1.4 to f2. So if you don't want that super dreamy look, simply stop it down and you've got yourself a Summilux. Okay, that's that about the optical performance. What about build quality? Well, I think, like I said before, when I first received this Steelrim Remake, honestly, I was quite disappointed by the build quality that I got from the first lens. But this particular lens feels much sturdier and it's quite smooth. The aperturing also doesn't wobble as much anymore. But if you compare this lens to the brass Voigtlander version, I honestly think the Voigtlander is built better. It's not only a tiny bit heavier, but also when you turn the aperturing, you'll notice the sound difference in dampening. So this is the Voigtlander compared to this is the Steelrim. So the Voigtlander just feels a little bit better dampened, and also the Voigtlander's focusing ring is actually a bit smoother than the Summilux. So that is quite a surprise, isn't it? Well, even for the regular version of the Voigtlander, I don't think its build quality is any inferior to the Leica counterparts. When you compare it to, for example, the pre-aspherical here, same thing. The pre-aspherical, the aperturing is quite loose. I mean, that might be due to, this is an old lens rather than a brand new one, but still. The focus ring, of course, is buttery smooth here, better than the new Summilux. So yeah, that's the build quality. It's certainly a beautiful lens, but I'm just not that impressed with the build quality here. It's supposed to be the best built Leica lens in Leica history, and yet I think Voigtlander surpasses it in this department here, which is quite a surprise to me. Well, so I guess that's it for the Summilux Steelrim Remake video. What do you think? If you have the money to spend, would you get the lens just to get that classic Leica glow? I mean, it's a very signature look and it's certainly very interesting. But personally for me, I would rather go for something more practical. For example, a Summilux or a modern Summilux aspherical. But I guess it's really personal preference. And yes, actually all these four lenses have huge advantage when it comes to their size. And size is very important when you're carrying a Leica rangefinder because you want to be stealthy and you want to operate smoothly. And these 1.4 big aperture but small sized lenses really enables you to do that. And I think that's the biggest advantage of this group of lenses. Okay, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.